Great. I'll go ahead and get this meeting started. Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Altadena Libraries Board of Libraries Trustees Budget Committee to order. There's only two of us. Roll call. We've got Camila Wilkerson and myself present, Rushmore Cervantes. Thank you, Camila. That represents a quorum. Camila, you do you have anything that you'd like to take out of order on the agenda or modify on the agenda?
No.
Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and proceed. I've already been notified by Diego that we have no public comments on agenda or non-agenda items. So why don't we go ahead and move forward with the consent calendar. Approval of the minutes. Yes, Diego.
Just in terms of process and for the minutes purposes, can we have a vote for the approval of the agenda?
Sure, if you'd like. Okay. All right. Camila, may I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, and I second that is approved. We will now move forward. Thank you, Diego, for that clarification. We will now move forward. Item number 3, which is the consent calendar, approval of the minutes. Have you had the opportunity to review the minutes, Camila?
Yes, and I do not have any changes.
Correct. Motion to approve?
Yes, so moved.
All right, I second it. So therefore, the minutes of the May 13th, 2021 Budget Committee has been approved. We have no unfinished business from our prior Budget Committee meeting, so therefore we will go to item number 5, which is new business. That is 5A, review and discussion of the Altadena Library District financial reports, formatting and content prepared by ALD board trustees. That's on page 6 through 11 of the package for those that are viewing from home. Am I going to turn this over to Nikki or to Ian?
I think I'll take it from here, and I believe what we wanted to discuss was a few of the questions that maybe some of the trustees had with the new financials. I'm available to answer anything that might have come up. And I know we kind of flipped these around and are starting with a new year here and looking to present these a little bit differently. So I just wanted to open it up for any questions or suggestions, and can move on from there. If you need further explanation on anything, just let me know.
Great. Camila, have you had the opportunity to take a look at the reformatted financials, and do you have any questions or comments on them?
I did review them, and I don't have any specific questions. I have just some general questions, but yeah, no, I don't have. Go ahead. We're good.
No, if you have questions, go ahead and ask them now, Camila.
Well, they're just, I just wanted the clarification. So when it says the revenue and expenses that are unaudited, what does that mean? What does that mean?
It just means that these reports that we're preparing are on a monthly basis. They haven't been through the annual audit yet, so there's just no assurance provided on these financial numbers. So they haven't been put, they haven't been put under audit. But we are in the process of finishing our annual audit for last fiscal year 2021. Mm-hmm. So at that point, at the end of the year, those numbers do become audited numbers.
Okay. And then the last question that I had was shared expense. What does that mean?
We just wanted to compile a report, and I think this was per Rushmore, your and Terry's direction on trying to see a more holistic view of one line item, because some of these line items are budgeted across different revenue sources. So we have, say, the first report, which is the general fund report. Mm-hmm. And that's got mostly the bulk of all the property taxes and everything goes there, interest. But then if you look at, say, the donations and grants report, those are coming from different revenue sources, such as the Friends of the Library, the state literacy services money, and then the foundation. And then the shared expenses will kind of show you some of those items just as a whole across the general and then the donations and grants, because, for example, we have, say, we have books and budgeted both in general and donations and grants funds.
Mhm.
But some of those books are going to be purchased with some of that donation or grant money.
Got it.
Mhm.
Helpful. Thank you. I didn't recall that. So that's a really helpful way to look at it. Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem.
Any other questions
Rushmore,
or
did you
comments?
have any questions on your end?
Well, actually, I wanted to thank you for the shared expense columns. That's kind of what we were looking for, and you explained it very well because it really kind of reflects the true amount of resources that are going into the specific expenditure line items, which is obviously very important for the constituents to understand, while at the same time being able to decouple the grants and the expenditures separate page, as well as, of course, the general fund. So I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate the year-to-date target percentage in the top right-hand corner of each of the column headers. That kind of helps perspective of the overall percentage.
Definitely.
Versus,
Yeah.
because it doesn't give you a perspective if you're at 50% or 10%. It's like, well, maybe we are on target, really. So that really is helpful as well.
Yeah, and
Rushmore?
on that
Go
note,
ahead.
I just want to point out that maybe some of those percentages do trend over and under. The things we do see very kind of in step with the budget are things like salaries and benefits, something that's very fixed, paid every 2 weeks. There might be that month where we pay 3 payrolls twice a year.
Right.
But other than that, something like that trends very nicely, whereas property taxes are you're going to get them all in November and you're going to get them all in April or May. So different things can kind of be over or under, maybe an insurance policy that we pay once a year, so.
You prepay it. Yeah, you're going to prepay it all up front, so it makes sense.
Exactly.
I appreciate that. Camila, did you have another question or comment?
I just wanted to also confirm my understanding of that percentage in that column, the year to date. So it says, for example, on the shared expense, 17%, meaning we just started the fiscal year, or, this is the first month of the fiscal year. So the target for where it should be is 17%. And then the columns on the numbers in that column show where exactly it is. So for example, the 19% of programs under adult services, is that like 2% above where it should be? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, but again, with something like, programs or books too, if they initiate a large purchase of materials they were looking to buy, or if they go through a particular program that was budgeted to happen during the year, it could be over and under. So, up a percent or two or down a percent or two is pretty regular.
Yep.
And sometimes there's a story to tell if it is over, if it is under. So if you guys ever notice anything, we should have an answer for it.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
we were asking, thank you for that, Camila, and we were asking some of those questions of Nikki at the last board meeting. Some of the anomalies that seem to be pretty high. So we appreciate that.
And I apologize for not being present for that, but I'm glad we could figure it out now.
Yeah, very good. Also, if this is the overall general fund revenue expenses, should we not have a line item for set aside for operating reserves in here?
Let me see. We do have, in addition to reserves, if you look on page 7 of 17 of the agenda, line 72.
72.
Yeah, so we actually budgeted to add to the reserves.
Got it.
So,
okay.
Yeah, we've got actually anticipating 27,900 more in revenues than we're projected to spend.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I think by and large, you can get a real good snapshot of where we are when you look at all of the pages. You stop at the first page. It's not going to tell the whole story. You have to kind of read through all of the documents to be able to get a good perspective of where we are. There's still kind of not a nagging, but certainly something we need to work on, Nikki. And I know we've tried several times, but really kind of look at the what the LA County maintains on our behalf. I know that within the budget itself, there's a number of different line items. I mean, there's property tax also, I mean, that a line item, but there's different buckets, and it'd be kind of helpful to and it doesn't necessarily have to be in a balance sheet, but we talked at one point creating like maybe a one pager to kind of describe those different resources that the county is processing on behalf of the district. Do you remember that conversation, Nikki?
Yes, I do. And almost like a step-by-step walkthrough of how to read the financials. I think we were hoping to get these where we liked the way they look, and then we create such a tutorial type of document or whatever.
Right.
But again, looking at the way that we've combined all of that money together and we don't really have the balance sheet anymore. I don't know. Oh, we do have the balance sheet.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
We do have a
sheet.
summarized balance sheet. So, Rushmore, if you are referring to the cash that LA County holds,
Mhm.
which is part of it, it's going to be the first two lines under cash and investments.
Mhm.
And then they do also administer the property taxes. So any receivable we have under line 11 is also held with the county until collected.
So I
Right.
think it
And
would probably be like annotating this balance sheet, basically.
Right. Right. And, just to be clear, I wasn't necessarily suggesting that we make edits to this document. To me, this is more of a tutorial, or we could have frequently asked questions on the website. What are the sources of monies that fund the library? And if you look at our budget, and we're going to come up to the mid-year here soon, and in early next year, what's within each of those buckets of the county. It'd be nice to be able to, all of us, just at a like a one pager, these that are online, or the budget committee and all of the board members have. It's like, I know each of these line items, what the source of money, what that source is, and when we anticipate. So obviously there's 2 to 3 times a year we're going to get the money from the county, the property tax. But what else is within that? That's all. So it'd be nice and easy to have a breakdown of those various buckets the county maintains. It doesn't necessarily impact the true balance sheet or the financials that we have here. That wouldn't be the place for it. I think but it'd be nice to have that separate, if you will, almost like a cheat sheet that everyone should have access to. And maybe, I'm not sure, Ian, you could effort that.
Yeah, and I do have a suggestion, because we'd never done this at Altadena before, but Cindy and I had talked about it, on and off throughout the years. But given our larger involvement lately, we can definitely push for that. But we actually do provide at some of our clients like a management report that details the lines of the financials, adds a brief description of what it is. And if it's prepared on a monthly basis, we can also discuss where we are at that particular point in time in regards to that line. I'm not sure how detailed you would like to get, or if it's more of a summarized overview of maybe revenue sources only, or
Right.
Would that
Ian,
be...
why don't we start? This is a suggestion. Why don't you provide? Maybe you can redact whatever you think is necessary from other clients. Summation of the revenue sources, and maybe we can, Camila and I can review it and give you our feedback on that. If it's just right, if it's not enough. It's just that I know from my first go around to the budget, there was some line items within the county. I just was kind of head scratcher. It was kind of like, what's this? What's that? It wasn't self-evident, and it'd be helpful to understand that. So would you be able to provide something like that, Ian, some sort of redacted document?
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely work on that for you. So from my understanding, you're mostly concerned with the sources of revenue.
Yeah. I know where the money's going. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely see where the money's going. I'm just trying to understand where the pots of money may lie at all times. And like I said, there's a few line items within the county specifically that okay, once you explain it, it makes sense, but it should be kind of put in layman's terms. And Camille and I, being on the board, the budget committee, should definitely have a good grasp of each of those buckets within the county that they're
Sure.
holding on.
Yeah, we're happy to put that together, and we can sort of effort and aim to have it with the September version of these financials.
Okay, that'd be fantastic. Really appreciate that. Good. Speaking of budget, so we're fairly early on, so we're not going to. No, we're in November now. So, Nikki, when do you anticipate doing a mid-year adjustment, or do you think there's going to be a need? Probably February, March timeframe.
Yeah, in the past, I believe we've done it in February because we have to have like the numbers from December to be able to do those adjustments. So I know
Makes
our
sense.
quarterly meeting is scheduled for that, again, the first Thursday of February. So that's when I would imagine we'll be doing those. I'll just have to confirm with Ian that we'll have, those mid-year numbers by that point.
We will.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think we'll be able to get into the groove enough after, it's been a little rough patch here, but we'll be able to get into the groove and start getting those month-end numbers a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
Great.
But I think that's a good goal. So first Thursday of February then.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, Nikki and Ian, for that.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll present those to the full board in February then.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Camila, anything else on the financials?
No.
Okay.
So I did mention to Ian, and sorry if I missed this at the beginning of his presentation, but looking at potentially changing the way that we track the donations and grant sheet so that it's easier to see where the money's coming from and how it's being spent. Did you talk about that at all, Ian?
Not yet, but I'm happy to touch on that as well.
Yeah. Why don't we get into that a bit?
So if we're looking at the donations and grants fund, page 9 of 17.
Do you want to share your screen or no? Is that easier?
Yeah, that might be helpful. Okay, let's see. Okay, so let me know when you all can see the donations and grants.
We see it.
Okay. So if we're looking at this here, Nikki had a good point, and this had crossed my mind sort of in preparation, and then after, looking at it a few times, is that we do have a few different sources of money, and they are being spent differently. So it may be helpful to split these out into, say, the Library Foundation column, Friends of the Library, and Literacy Services in three separate sort of columns, if you will, because they're three different sources of money and they're being spent in three different places. So this is more of an overall grouping, and it's kind of lumping them all together. But it does get a little bit difficult, to present, current month, year-to-date budget percentage. We couldn't really do that for all three of these sources of revenue. So if I cut it down to maybe year-to-date, and we just think in terms of, when we get to August, July to August, July to September, July through October, sort of a whole fiscal year, but presented at every month, just adding that extra month on, I may be able to split it up into and get it to fit to show three separate sort of funding sources. That was a thought that Nikki and I had.
So basically, just as an example, you would have the Altena Library Foundation at $30,000, and then you'd have the commensurate $30,000 in expenditures that have been budgeted. Obviously, since we have not received anything as of yet, there would be no expenditures. However, in the Friends of the Library district library, we'd have $15,000 revenue source, and then the commensurate budgeted budgeted items for
correct. The
some expenditures against it, right?
Exactly. So really showing the revenues and the related expenditures.
If you can do it, I think that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
I think it'd provide peace of mind, certainly for the Friends of and the foundation. They see where their dollars are going specifically. We can have a summation like this. I think this is a great, great document. do you anticipate there would be, you would augment this or have a separate page that you'd have the summation of this revenue expenses of donations and grant fund, and then have it broken down, or you just have it all three of those sources broken down? Because then I guess, because you could have an example, when if we get other grants, you're gonna have to add an additional page or additional line of revenue, and then the commensurate expenditures as well.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, maybe I'm thinking 3 funding sources. Once we get to the 4th, it almost won't fit on the page. Worst case scenario, we can start splitting these out independently. I'm just trying to avoid, turning a 5 or 6 page financial report into 9, 10, and maybe we start to get to 11 or 12 pages. So that's my only concern. But worst case scenario, we could split them out into independent reports. Independent
maybe
pages.
and have it maybe you could have those on a quarterly basis or something like that. I'm just thinking out loud, because you're getting into the minutia of it, but it's, again, based on the funding source and the people that are behind that they want to see where the monies are. And I think it provides certainly a great level of transparency. And, it kind of forces Nikki, not that she needs to be forced, and her team to make sure that they're allocating based on, their expenditures from the source of monies that was provided.
Right.
So
right.
I think it's helpful.
Yeah. So, I'll give it a shot, and I'll see what I can do as far as the 1-pager. And then if we do get additional funding at that point, maybe it does need to be broken out more, but I'll try and give this a summarized, we'll split it out by the funding sources, see if it all fits, and see what we can come up with.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Camila, any thoughts? Yes, Camila, please.
I just had a curious question, Nikki. So what's an example of some of the specific expenditures that might come out of, like, the Friends or the foundation?
So like with the sheet that he just had up, if you look under the mobile library, that 16,000, that's the adopted budget, that came from the foundation. So
yeah,
so like
have
the
it earmarked.
expenditures, like, let's say if he makes columns for each of the funding sources, that would be under the foundation column. Whereas a lot of the programming money would be coming from the Friends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
there's just
$16 for the mobile library that went into would have been like the wrapping service, or just it went into having, creating the mobile library basically?
Yeah, and this is this fiscal year, so all of that was spent last year.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but it's like the programming, so like any supplies or things that they buy for the van as they're out doing outreach, could be programming, could be equipment, a variety of things, but mainly like supplies they need to provide programming.
And how is it decided, again, curious, how is it decided what bucket the money comes from, basically? Like, do the Friends say, we want you to buy a step for the mobile library, so use this money for that? Like, how does that typically work?
Well, the foundation last year, and what's hard is they're on a calendar year, not our fiscal year. They designated specific money for specific things. So they gave us 16,000 specifically for the mobile library. They also gave us money for art restoration, as well as the Little Free Libraries. So that's kind of where those numbers came from. In terms of the Friends money, that 15,000, we just put that right into the summer reading fund this year.
Okay.
Normally they give us more, but they haven't been able to do book sales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Camila,
I was just curious. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Camila. I was going to say, you're the liaison for the Friends, and I'm the liaison for the foundation. I don't know, it doesn't sound like the Friends do this, but the foundation, they ask our director to make a presentation of what her wants and needs are going to be for the upcoming fiscal year, and based off of Nikki's submission, they'll approve or deny. So when they do grant a pot of money, it's already been predetermined, each of the buckets that where they will go, and that is based off of what Nikki presented to the foundation.
Got it.
Yeah, I think with the Friends, it's been a little different in that they look at what they have to give, and then we kind of like coordinate with them in terms of what it almost all goes to programming. Like the Friends pay for second Saturdays, they pay for summer reading program, they pay for all of the money we have to spend to do crafts and programming related supplies. You know, all of that comes out of the money that the Friends give us. As you can see, the foundation is picking up a bit of that this year.
Yeah.
Because they were able to give us more than the Friends, but it'll look, and I'm sure it will look different next fiscal year for sure too.
That's really helpful to know, because I didn't realize what, and I don't know, maybe is that I guess the impetus behind spelling it out on the spreadsheet so that it's more clear where exactly the money is going. Because I never knew that, you know, that the money was, you know, allocated for different things, you know, other than just going in like a general pot that the library uses, or whatever. So it's helpful to know that, you know, for example, the Friends, the money is used for, you know, programming and crafts and summer reading. That's really cool.
And I mean, and more. So typically at the Friends annual meeting, the membership meeting in June is where, like this year, Victor attended and he presented on the many things that the Friends helped fund over that past fiscal year. The Friends are on a fiscal year, so that makes things less messy, to be honest. But either way, we may want to approach it the same way. But I do think, I'm trying to think, you know, it's been pandemic since I started almost, but like, I want to say that I did present specific asks in 2020, but then of course, like things went haywire. So we'll see. Oh, and by the way, today is my 2-year anniversary. Crazy.
Hey,
Congratulations. Anniversary.
Congratulations or condolences, right?
I was like, what a 2 years it has been.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Congratulations. You know, and you talk about those two, the foundational and the Friends, like maybe one of these days we'll have those merged and we'll just have one line item. That's a separate discussion.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, Rushmore.
Yeah. So God, this is, yeah, I appreciate that recommendation. I think that'll be much clearer, Ian. So yeah, kind of just play it. We'll wait for your first draft, I guess, of how that looks, and if we get additional grants, hopefully, you know, then you know we'll have to modify accordingly, I guess.
I wonder if that color coding works, Ian. I kind of like.
Yeah, let me go back to that.
You know what I mean? Then you can add however many lines, and you just add another color. You know.
Sure. I mean, it does kind of work to an extent. If we were to print it out, it kind of would look something like this.
I think the only time it would be tricky is if, let's say, the foundation and the Friends are both giving to adult services programming, then we'd almost have 2 lines of adult services.
Exactly.
Right?
It gets a little messy.
But I think that's why when Ian and I approached this, we knew what was given by each and we just assigned it to a bucket because it's easier to track that way. But one thing that I do think I need to emphasize to staff and with our accounting, and Ian will have to help me with this, is that I'd like to see us spend these funds first.
Of course.
Before we touch general operating.
Yeah.
So we'll need to make sure that we're like having staff code these appropriately when they're spending the money to exhaust this revenue source first. So you'll have to help me with that, Ian. Because like I would like to see on that first sheet, nothing charged if there's money in this sheet for those buckets, you know?
Yeah, so like for example, we have adult services and we've had, I believe, some adult services expenses. So we could actually reclass those to come out of that money first. And then, you know, exhaust it and then start hitting the general fund.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. That 4810 should go on out of donations and grants.
Yes, I will make a point to update these for September.
Yeah, that's Well, rule number one of grants, spend that money first.
Spend it, baby.
Always.
Yeah. Now, you're going to have situations where, as an example, where, we've got a commitment, but not necessarily the money, but we can still allocate or charge against a future source because we know it's coming. That's just merely an accounting measure that we can. But
Yeah, and I guess, Ian, I would
on-
think Christopher's money that came in is gonna show up, but that didn't come until what? September. No wonder we don't see it yet. Because yeah, I do
Was
think
that-
that
how much money was that?
emergency connectivity fund. Remember the 40 laptops and the 16 hotspots you guys
Oh,
approved?
yes.
He got that money approved, and I think we received it.
I'll have to check. Yeah, we're working through
Yeah.
September right
But
now.
that'll hit this sheet too then, which is
Yeah,
nice.
there you go. There's another source
Exactly.
and use. Yeah. Or uses. Yeah.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think this would be a very helpful tool, not only for the board, but also for Nikki and your team, just be able to, chart it all out and for transparency once more. That's
Well, and I
awesome.
kind of love too, like as we're doing this now. So like, for example, when we put Christopher's grant that came in, it was like $25,000 that we got out of that emergency connectivity fund. And
Mhm.
we'll add more lines. That's going to be for equipment, and it's going to be for, like the hotspot services. You can
Right.
see how many things can get paid for out of
Mhm.
grants and donations too.
Right.
I think that's another really good thing that we'll be able to see from this chart. Whereas in the past, it was like, we're spending on these things, but you didn't know exactly what was getting paid for out of grants and donations,
Oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Well, this is good. This is a good conversation. I appreciate you bringing that up, Nikki, but I really like that additional feature that we're going to be adding and potentially expanding based on numbers of grants we do get. So that's fantastic. Camila, anything else on this matter? Great. Thank you. Did you need us to take an action on this, Nikki? Or was this just FYI? Look, it showed up as an action, but I'm not sure that meant it was an action here. This is just an FYI, right?
I think, Diego, correct me if I'm wrong, but we put everything as action in case there was anything you guys wanted to like vote to change or amend or something like that. But we can just not act.
I don't think we need to act. I
Correct.
think I think Ian has, the committee's recommended changes, and we can have, a copy of, like I said, the summary that from with a redacted summary from another client on sources, and then
Mhm.
expanding the sources and uses of grants.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily think it requires a vote, but we're just going to start doing it.
Nope, I think.
Unless
that's
you think
good.
so, Diego.
Am I right? Diego's the policy
Yes.
police.
Yes, that's actually what we started doing. That was actually the intent, especially since Katie had mentioned it before that it's okay to do action and then just not take it. I want to basically give you all the opportunity to take action if you felt you needed to, but no action will be put on the minutes.
No, I think we're good. Thank you. Okay, so appreciate that, Ian and Nikki. So as far as we're going to 5B, discussion regarding ALD financial operation
That's me.
strategies. All right.
Okay, and Ian, I know like if you have to jump out at some point, you're able to do so.
Sure.
I think it'll be good. I think
yeah,
it's
Nikki-
good that you're still here because you can correct me if I'm wrong in any of these things I'm saying.
Sure, I can hang out. I'll just need to jump off maybe 10 minutes before 2, get ready for my next meeting. So
Okay,
I'll stay
perfect.
as long as I can.
So the reason I put this on here was I kind of wanted to give the budget committee sort of the background as to how we got to where we are. And then what we're hoping and planning to do moving forward in terms of the financial operations and strategies around that. Okay. So, and I'm not going back until 1926, but my understanding was prior to Nicole Fabry, our previous administrative services manager, we had what was called a finance director. And that was in the previous 2 administrations, like, back like 2010, whatever, to the 14 or 15. And when that person left their position, that's when Nicole had been hired on as a part-time staff accountant, and then like got promoted into full-time and really took over most of the financial work, budget oversight, et cetera, in coordination with the accountants, I would assume. At that time, the district had hired an outsourced HR company. So all of the HR functions were supposed to be being handled by a company. I don't remember what it was called, but that's who handled the HR side of things, as well as I'm sure the director at the time. So fast forward, when Cindy Cleary was the interim director in 2019, her and Nicole agreed that the HR company they were using wasn't really fulfilling the things that they needed the company to do. Like there was very slow response rates. Nicole felt like her or Cindy were handling, or whoever the director was handling almost all of the HR stuff anyway. So Cindy had asked Nicole to take on a new position called business manager, where she would oversee the HR and financial functions for the district. And Nicole agreed. That was in the summer of 2019. I started as you know, in November of 2019. And at that point, we had already started contracting to do a classification and compensation study, which was completed in the spring of 2020. And at that point, Nicole had been reclassified to administrative services manager. Right after that, we were in the pandemic. And I do think all of us had to stretch substantially, but the additional duties with HR related to COVID, making sure we were staying updated on the state, federal, state, and county guidelines, making sure staff were following the safety protocols, et cetera, did add a bit of a workload to the administrative services manager position. And I do think when Cindy originally had asked her, I don't know that she thought she would be doing as much of the HR functions as she ended up doing with me, which was like overseeing performance evaluations, making sure they're getting done, disciplinary issues, what else? Onboarding, just like a lot of the HR functions that aren't necessarily related to finance, right? So I do think by this past spring, Nicole had a lot on her plate and got burnt out and had decided to move on. As you all know, she left in the end of June. I did talk to Cindy, our accountant who works with Ian, about the position. We decided to post it as administrative services manager. And what we noticed was that we were getting a lot of candidates that came from higher level positions that really want to handle the more executive level oversight type of role, not necessarily like getting their hands dirty paying bills. Almost like whoever was applying was taking a demotion sort of to take this job. So as you know, we did hire, and due to the introductory period, we figured out that it wasn't a good fit for either us or the candidate that took that position. So he's no longer with us. So that's where we are today. I just thought it would be good to give you guys kind of an overview of where we're at. So in talking to Cindy Byram with Ide Bailey, we had decided that we were going to look at changing the position, which is the next thing on the agenda. So I won't go into that right now. But in the meantime, what we've decided to do is have Ide Bailey step in and help us create some infrastructure around the financial processes, procedures, and practices. So Ian's been coming in. He's working with a consultant as well, who's going to be basically doing weekly bill paying for us until we can fill a position, as well as creating procedures with like infographics and making sure that like the next person we bring on has some sort of like foundation of information to be successful in the position. In addition to that, we do think, and it's written into the into the job description, but the accountants are going to have more involvement with this person in terms of like the oversight function and making sure that like we're getting reports out in a more timely and accurate manner and making sure that we're following best practices for the finances. I mean, I do think our goal long-term is that Ide Bailey's not going to have to step in and do much because we have set this person up for success. But keeping that in mind, we did expand our HR, what would you say, services that are being provided by paychecks last May, this past May, I should say. So I have a certified HR consultant that I work with if I have like personnel questions or COVID related issues or anything that's HR specific. In addition to that, I plan to keep the performance evaluation oversight because I require all the managers to send me evals for review before I let them issue them anyway. So I've owned that. I've also been doing the onboarding and any personnel issues or disciplinary stuff, and I plan to just keep it that way. I really want the newer person to be able to focus on the more financial side of the HR process, and I do think that will be successful. Let's see, and I also want to work in this next year, and this will be built into the financial or the operational plan for 2022 to actually update the financial policies. And that's something that not only I'll work with the accountants on, but I do think that's something that the budget committee will assist me with. So we'll be bringing hopefully a draft either to the next meeting or your meeting in May, and we'll get some updated financial policies into place in the next year. The last time they were updated was 2009.
I'm really happy about that, Nikki.
Yeah, well, none of us are very happy, and it's been on the administrative services manager's goal sheet for a couple of years, but you know, other things rose to the top. So I just wanted to loop in the budget committee to let you know that I'm gonna like work with this group to actually do that rather than just push this on the plate of whatever person we bring in. So I'm happy to answer any questions, feedback, input, thoughts. I just kind of wanted to talk to you guys about where we're at, where we are looking forward. And then our next agenda item you'll see is the person that we're hoping to hire.
Camila, any questions, thoughts, comments? Okay, so you don't have any.
Actually,
go ahead, Camila.
sorry, no, so this, would you say, Nikki, that the job posting that you, or the job description that was created is like stepping toward like the strategies, and are you planning to, I might have missed that, but formalize that in terms of like, these are the item, you know, B that's on the agenda. Are you planning to formalize that, or it's a more informal process?
Well, I do think the job description, when we review it in the next item, like I'll explain the things that got pulled out of it and how the job has changed so that we're hopefully setting this next person up for success is what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, it's like working in a small district like this. There's just lots of hats, and I'm wearing several of them right now. But I do want to make sure that we're attracting the right candidates, because I do feel like that administrative services manager, you do find it, like when I worked in Glendale, for example, each department of the city had an admin services manager, but they had an HR department and a finance department that they liaison with, right? So I feel like here you have to do that higher level work, but you also have to do the getting your hands dirty, paying the bills kind of work. And I don't think the candidates that applied this last round were really that interested in doing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is based on Cindy's recommendation, which again, I don't want to like jump into the next item until we're ready, but.
Okay.
Right. But to your point though, I mean, if you boil it down, is really the previous position will be modified to remove any HR related matters, but everything else will remain the same by and large, correct?
Yes, largely.
Okay. So
Do
without
you have anything to add or no? Ian's been working with us for the last few years, so I thought historically maybe he has.
Yeah, I had a couple things to add just on, I think you're really You know, you hit the nail on the head with kind of the down and dirty part of it is that we just need to get somebody in there on the day to day doing, you know, the stuff that we're working to cover right now. So that's probably the most important piece, just from a day to day standpoint. And then I didn't work directly on the job description with you and Cindy, but I'm actually curious to see how it turned out. So
Yeah.
yeah,
we'll-
other than that.
Yeah, get into that next. I see the need to obviously do a right size the position. But Nikki, based on what you've experienced in the last 2 years, you believe by virtue of eliminating that one function from the position, then that will enable us to attract the right person, meaning we won't be getting people that are taking a step down. Do you think that they will attract people, a different type of people? Is that what your thoughts are? Can you talk to me about your thought?
Yeah. It's largely based on Cindy's experience working with so many different agencies in her career, that like when we talked through the essential functions of this position, and like I said, largely being accounts payable, accounts receivable, bookkeeping, you know, all of this, cutting checks, making deposits,
File management.
yeah, file management, that she was like, this is more of an office manager type of job. So we want to call it and post it what it actually is, you know, rather than you hear administrative services manager and it sounds a lot different.
It could be a lot of things, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And you'll see, like, should we move on to the next item?
Yeah, let's go, because we want to start getting into the weeds of the position description itself.
Yeah, let me pull up, and then you could see it too. Yeah. Hold on. Here it is. Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, so as you can see, and you know, I'll just let you read it while I go through. But again, in my staff report, I just basically said that what we've gone through in the last 6 months has shown that we needed to edit and adjust this description. So as you can see, right in the first paragraph, it's under my general direction, but also with assistance from the consulting CPAs. That wasn't something that was in the language before. That they're going to perform budgeting, financial accounting functions, payroll, office management, and risk management. And risk management was one of the things I wasn't sure should stay with this position or not. But when Cindy and I talked about it, she said that typically office manager does own that work too.
They absolutely should. Yeah.
So we kept that in there as well. We did leave supervisors staff as assigned. If down the road we feel like they need some type of staff support, they can. Right now, this person wouldn't be managing anyone, but again, I want to keep that open just in case. When you go to the examples of typical job functions, we moved overseas collection and disbursements of revenues, petty cash, cash related as the number one bullet. It had been like buried a little bit in the middle of those job functions. And Cindy and I felt like it was important that that was like first and foremost, because really that is the key function of this position. Also, as you can see, oversees the district's budget process along with the CPAs. We added that language. It doesn't fall on them specifically, because again, we felt like there was some confusion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, that, you know, the previous person that we had just hired wanted to come in and really be at this like 50,000 foot level of looking at the budget and the processes and the procedures and the theory. Whereas like, no, that's why we have our CPAs and myself to kind of like drive the bus in terms of process, and really just they're there for input and oversight, not necessarily to like drive the process itself.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd agree with that, Nikki. And just to kind of reiterate, there was a little bit of confusion, I think, when we had done previous year budgets with this position, where I felt like it was great that they were taking a, really proactive approach and like moving forward, but sometimes we did feel out of the loop. And then kind of, maybe just coming together a little bit more during the process. And we're always here to provide that oversight and as far as presentation and putting it together as much as you guys need us.
Mhm. Yeah.
So let me just make sure I understand. This office manager will not be preparing the annual budget?
I mean, I think there is oversight of the process, but it's in coordination with all of these other people. I think in the past, and it's probably because it was year after year, it didn't change that much. It was like numbers were tweaked, but I do think like we want to have this like clear level of oversight from the CPAs to ensure that it's an informed budget with their feedback and input, which it has been in the past. I'm not saying it wasn't, but like even more of a hand in that.
Especially with the projects that you're undertaking with the CFD and everything. So it's more important now than ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a different approach. I'm fine with that, obviously, because of as Ian, as you said, we've got a lot of complex sources and uses coming up that we need to make sure we're on top of that.
Mhm.
Typically, the admin director, or whatever you want to call that position, usually is the one that creates the budget. The CPAs are the ones that oversee the financials post budget, but that this will work. However, there's clear lines of process and roles and responsibilities. That's fine.
Yeah. And then if you just keep looking through, a lot of it, as you can see, is related to the financial processes that we need. And then, as you can see, the bullet on page 2 is administers district payroll. So this is the HR function that I see them doing. I've been doing payroll and I'm pretty good at it now, actually, so I'll be able to train them on it. But this would be the HR function that I could see them being involved with. But beyond that, I'm going to own the other HR functions, which were all removed from this job description. Yeah, and then, knowledge of, ability to, and again, most of it relates to the financials rather than having a strong HR background. So that is that. Any questions, feedback, anything you think it's missing?
Camila?
So
you want me to close my screen, or do you guys want to still look?
Leave it up just in case.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there a lot of the HR functions that you have to take on? Or is it mainly like interpersonal personnel types of issues and not the administrative pieces of it?
I would say, if there's a lot of personnel issues, yes, it would be a big workload. I don't foresee that happening. Right now, the bulk of my time spent HR related is on payroll. So once that gets passed off, I'm not too concerned. I do oversee the whole evaluation process, and we have, I think, 33 of us, so I'm making sure that those are getting assigned and turned in on time, but I'd like to work with Paychecks to automate that process anyway. So I don't believe that it will be that large of a burden, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, comments, Camila?
No.
No. Okay.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah. Could you go up just to the first page, just to the
Sure.
top, I guess? Just make sure I understand. Under let me see definition. You want this person in that definition at the top. You want them to have require specialized knowledge of library policies, procedures. Is that after they arrive, or do you need them to have specific library policies, procedures experience before they get the job?
I think that's something they could gain on the job.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could limit yourself if you're only going to be targeting people that have worked in libraries. Just quick question on page 16, the next page, third bullet, and this basis it's more out of curiosity. It starts with respond to internal and external customers. How much will this person be interacting with the public? I'm just kind of curious.
It's more so like vendors.
I see.
and, others that provide services to us.
Okay.
Not so much like the public.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
No, that was it was more idle curiosity than anything else. No, I have no further questions on that. I think it looks fine, and Camila and I appreciate the conversation and certainly the history
Mhm.
and the evolution of this position to where we are now, understanding the dynamic of this position. I did see and make sure that we're all comfortable with this as this budget committee potentially moves forward with this recommendation to move forward to the full board for consideration is just that quick question, what percentage of work has been eliminated from the duties? In other words, we're stripping out the HR functions minus the payroll. What percentage of time would you say that we are stripping out of this position?
That's really hard to say, largely because so much time was spent on the COVID stuff,
Right.
which I think you would lump into the HR duties, not the finance duties.
Well, it could fall under risk management and emergency preparedness too. So that's
yeah, that's true.
I'm asking Nikki. It's somewhat of a setup question because the reason I'm asking is the obvious is that the compensation will be the same,
right.
even though we're stripping out. I don't know what the percentage is, but just make sure that we're comfortable with eliminating, which we believe was quite a burden for previous employees that held this position. Maybe this is the right salary for the right position now.
I mean, what number jumps to mind for me is like 10 to 15%, maybe,
Mhm.
maybe with
Okay.
the performance evaluation process.
Mhm.
I do know it's, like I said, it's taking up my time with having the payroll side of things, but with that person, I mean, I just think I think the salary is right on to recruit the right kind of person for this role. Cindy and I talked about that as well.
You did a salary analysis along with the position description analysis, so that goes hand in hand, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other question would be: is if we are then eliminating that function, that 10 to 50%, does our contractual service obligation increase commensurate to the additional workload that we are now adding because this person will no longer do it?
I think that's a fair statement, wouldn't you say, Ian?
Yeah, I think that would be fair.
So what's the cost? In other words, because we're stripping this portion of the duties out, keeping the salary the same, that's what's being proposed. And then what is it going to cost the budget, going forward to pick up that additional slack that was previously performed by this position?
So that's going to be administered through your HR, Nikki, right?
Yeah, most of it will be through me.
Most of it, and then maybe some additional accounting consulting, which I don't think we've hit our budget, in previous years because of how much, the previous person kind of covered the extra item. So I wouldn't see it being too much of a constraint.
Mhm.
Well, you may have the money for it, because obviously we have some money set aside for operating reserves, but with the, in example, the existing budgeted line item for this contractor, with these new sets of duties, does not that line item have to increase in order to compensate them for this additional work?
I would have to look into the cost of the additional services.
Yeah. I think it's just worthwhile because we know that's going to be a cost, a burden that the district's going to have to absorb because this position is no longer going to do it, and while at the same time maintaining its existing salary for now less duties. So I'm okay, talking about having this go forward, but I think before this goes to the full board, I would want to know what that additional cost will be and get assurances that we have sufficient revenue in this budget through a mid-year adjustment in February to be able to cover these additional costs. And then, of course, that's an additional cost for going forward, excuse me.
Definitely. And I apologize. I got to go jump on my other meeting, but
No worries.
you and I can talk about that
Yeah.
maybe later this week or next week.
Okay. Thank you, Ian.
Okay. Yeah, you guys have a good day.
Yeah.
Thank you too.
Okay, see you later.
Well, and thinking about it more as you were talking, Rushmore, I do think I'm taking much of it myself. So I don't see it as additional cost,
Yeah.
being that I'm overseeing the HR stuff. And we are going to be spending more with the accountants right now to get everything set up correctly.
Okay.
But after that, I think it would be like pretty routine in terms of what they typically offer us, which is that like monthly reconciliation of the accounts and creation of the worksheets for the board.
Yeah. Nikki, can I ask this? I mean, is it your desire to really be that involved in HR stuff? Or is it you just doing it for budgetary reasons?
I think
I mean, I'd rather have you spending time being our librarian than dealing with HR stuff personally, but that's just my perspective. You know,
well, I mean, I just think like it's a duty that has to fall on someone. And,
I know.
you know, potentially once I have our new assistant director on board, that's something that we could do together.
I think so.
Like, depending on the person that we hire as well, I'm always thinking about the legal side of things. And
Yeah.
I think my skills and experience will keep us from not handling HR processes properly. So I'd want to make sure that if we decide to go down another road, that we could afford it and we have a qualified person to make sure they're doing that, like carrying out those functions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Because I mean, as director, you are our policy wonk. You are our director. You know, and not that you can't do HR stuff, but I mean, you're paid a good salary to be able to lead the organization, which you're doing a great job. But you know, HR stuff can get you in the weeds. And I understand you want to have hands-on to a certain degree, but that's where you need an executive officer or your assistant director handling some of that stuff. I just don't want to be written in stone that the director is doing this, because it doesn't make sense to me. We hired you to be the librarian, not the HR guru.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I was curious about like how much of the HR piece that would fall to you and not the office manager, you know, person, because it does seem very weedy. But I think I agree, once you can onboard a new assistant director, then definitely can take on some of the pieces of that.
Yeah.
Because I actually really like the idea of you not necessarily doing performance evaluations, but that they need to come through you and be, you know, approved through you, because you do have that extra lens that could, you know, keep us out of any legal trouble or hot water, or, you know, in terms of how any hot ticket in, you know, personnel or interpersonal issues are handled. I think those do need to come up to you, but, you know, a lot of the more, you know, kind of day-to-day stuff, to use Rushmore's term again, the weeds, I think would be better suited to someone else. Yeah, and our current evaluation form, I have to sign every single one. So it's probably just like how I am. If I'm going to sign something, I want to see it first. Right. So that potentially could even change down the road, especially as we move things online. But yeah, I completely agree. I just want to make sure that I'm preventing any sort of legal trouble moving forward in terms of personnel matters and management. So absolutely. I do think, like, I think back on when I was the assistant director in Glendale, and I handled pretty much all of that kind of stuff too. So, you know, that's definitely something we're doing the first round of interviews next week. You guys just made me think that'd be a good question to include. I think that, you're hearing, you know, consistency here is just, you know,
we know you can do it, but we'd rather have you spend your time doing other things, and we appreciate your attention to details. It just should be somebody else. It should be worked into.
Yeah.
We can have our contractor handle some version of it, some form of that, but really it needs to be internal. Some of it, a lot of it has to fall in your number two, and that's kind of part of number two. You have to do those types of things. That's kind of the way any organization is. So if we can commit to that type of structure, I think that'd be helpful, and it really be helpful for Camille and I to approve this, knowing what that cost will be, at least on an interim basis, so that when we present this before the full board, the salaries remain the same, the cost will go up, until such time. I'm not sure what this looks like, Nikki, as far as if you got your assistant director in, if there's no additional cost now with the contractor, or they're going to do some and your assistant director is going to do some. I just, that part I don't know. And it could be de minimis amounts, but there is inherent costs associated with that if you have an outside person or entity doing that. I think it's important for Camila and I to understand what that dollar amount is before we just start taking action on something. But that's just my perspective.
So
what are your thoughts?
To make sure I'm understanding your point, Rushmore, so why the fiscal impact is the same, because we're going to pay the office manager the same as the administrative person. So what are you thinking in terms of the long-term cost of having to consult with the other, like HR, and that will add cost because we're removing that portion from that position?
Yeah, as it was described to us, Camila, is that a portion of the work, 10 to 15% of this position's work, was going to be offloaded and given to the contractor.
Right.
The salary remains the same, but that means that no contractor is going to take that additional work on without a cost increase. And I just don't know what that cost increase is. And even if it's a temporary basis until such time an assistant director comes, I just want to know, I'd like to know what we're approving, because we could approve this and then the contractor say, oh, by the way, it's going to cost you, we're going to have to increase our cost by 20% to provide these services. And that's a cost we just kind of box ourselves into.
Yeah, so when we upped our services with paychecks, we built into the budget last year that additional 10,000. So that's built in for HR consulting. Whether
as long
or
as
not
it covers those costs.
So that was actually budgeted for. Whereas I actually have put together a salary savings chart based on, we haven't made anyone acting as we've had any of these vacancies, that I'm going to present to the board as part of my evaluation package. So you guys will get to see that. I think based on the fact that we did hire a temp worker to come in to do some of the accounting and bookkeeping. Sure, that ate some of that, but not very much of it. So overall, we've saved a lot of money in the vacancy time, as you know, that happens. But so right now we are spending more with iBailey to get everything cleaned up and moving forward the way we want it to, as well as them helping me write this job description and recruit for it. But I do think once the person's hired and trained, the cost isn't going to change as what it's looked like in the past. And I say that because the HR stuff, either I'm taking internally and just delegating accordingly, or we're paying paychecks, which has already been budgeted as part of our HR consulting services. Okay.
Well, since you've added that budget to $10,000 as we had approved some time back for HR services, if that body or that line item also covers these additional costs to perform until such time that you bring on a new assistant director, I'm fine. What I needed to hear from you, Nikki, was revenue neutral, and I hadn't heard that until you just said that. So I mean, if it's revenue neutral and we have an understanding down the line, we're really going to commit to not having you do it, but obviously having your assistant director doing it. I'm fine with this position.
Yeah, definitely.
Camila, does that work for you?
Yep.
Okay. So any other thoughts, comments before we decide to move forward, Camila?
No.
No? Okay.
Me.
Great. Can a motion?
Motion to approve this job description and Yes,
And
so moved.
recommend.
I don't know what the words are, but you
Said
got my
perfectly.
approval.
There you go. Well, more importantly, I got 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, very good. Okay, then that item is now approved. I vote for me. So that concludes our new business.
And then that has to go to the full board.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, so the approval is to recommend that we
yeah,
present it to, okay, got it. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
And Nikki,
basically-
I would just recommend that you present it in such a fashion that it is revenue neutral. The additional work is being covered by paychecks, and that falls within the budget of the additional $10,000 that was added to the contract. Furthermore, this work will be absorbed down the line by, mostly
Assistant
of the assistant
director.
director.
okay. Very good. Yeah, so thanks
Nikki,
for
you have something
reviewing.
else?
Yeah, because this is a lot of what we're doing on the CFD committee, Camila, where they're looking at it first. So by the time it gets to the board, it's already been vetted.
Right.
Sure, they'll be able to weigh in too, but I think it's good that you guys were able to take a look too.
Cool.
Definitely, we appreciate the eyes on it, and even if it's a administrative position, still have the budgetary lens as well, since this is the budget committee.
Yep, this is who we'll be working with.
Right, exactly. So announcements and planning, any future proposed agenda items, Camila?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Well, I think for the next meeting will be February, so we'll be looking at the mid-year adjustment, provided that we've got the year-end closeout or the calendar year-end closeout numbers through December
Yep.
31st.
And just so you know, if we don't, we will postpone it.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
like, it would be pointless. Not
Yeah, we'll
pointless.
have
I'm sure there's other things
No, I
we'll
know.
be able to discuss, but I would also, and I'll add this as a future item, is financial policy update,
Yes.
policies update. And even if that's just giving you guys a copy of what the old ones look like, so we get started or whatever, we'll talk as we get through this.
Mhm.
And then hopefully we'll be introducing a new staff person by then. That's the
Let's
goal.
hope so.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. All right. So seeing that
Alrighty.
is the end of the agenda. Without objection, I will adjourn this meeting. Camila, any objection?
No.
None? Okay. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, Nikki.
Y'all
Thank you,
have a
Camila.
good
Thank you,
day.
Diego.
Good to see
All
you.
right. And Nikki, congratulations.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
2 years. All right.